Have you ever felt a chill crawl up your spine for no apparent reason? Have you ever looked into someone's eyes and felt something ancient and wrong staring back? Now imagine that someone is a child, harmless, right? But what if their eyes are pitch black, no iris, no sclera, just deep, endless voids? Endless. These are the so-called black-eyed children, and once you've heard about them, it's hard to forget them. They appear at night, knock on your door or window, and ask for help, a ride, to use your phone, to come inside. But something about them feels off. You feel paralyzed, your instincts scream danger, but you can't explain why. Some say they're a modern myth. Others believe there's something much darker. Demons, aliens, or something we don't even have a word for yet. So today we're diving into one of the creepiest mysteries of the internet age, but don't be too quick to label it just an urban legend, because once you let them in, it might already be too late. It all starts with the stories. They're everywhere. Reddit, YouTube, old paranormal forums. And while the details change, some elements stay exactly the same. The children always look around 10 to 14 years old. They're pale, they dress in outdated clothes, and they speak in a way that's almost robotic, polite, emotionless, and weirdly formal. And always their eyes are entirely black. Take one of the earliest documented stories dating back to the late 90s. A man named Brian Bethel was sitting in his car writing a check, parked outside a movie theater. Two boys approached his window. They were wearing hoodies, and they looked at first glance completely normal. But something felt wrong. As soon as he saw their eyes, pure black orbs, he felt frozen with fear. The boys kept insisting they needed a ride home to get money to see a movie. They promised it would only take a minute. But Bethel said he felt like if he let them in, something terrible would happen. He drove away as fast as he could. And here's where it gets interesting. Bethel wasn't the only one. People from all over the world started sharing their own stories, all eerily similar. Rural areas, urban areas, nighttime, knocking on doors, tapping on windows, always asking to be let in. And what's the one rule everyone seems to know instinctively? Don't let them in. What's chilling isn't just what these children look like. It's the effect they have on people: panic, dread, nausea. Some even say they felt hypnotized, like their minds were being pulled into something else. Something not entirely human. Of course, skeptics argue this is all a case of mass hysteria. Creepypasta stories gone viral. The internet has a way of turning scary tales into shared myths. They say it is just a modern version of the boogeyman, a way for our brains to process fear in a digital age. But there's something odd here. Unlike most urban legends, which grow over time and shift dramatically with each retelling, the black-eyed children stories are remarkably consistent, and they keep coming, even now. And let's talk about the fear. Not just a vague sense of unease, but intense, almost primal terror. People who have supposedly encountered these children often say the fear was irrational, stronger than anything they'd ever felt before. One woman, who spoke anonymously in an online forum, said she fainted as soon as she made eye contact with a black-eyed girl outside her window. She woke up the next morning with a nosebleed and a strange bruise on her arm in the shape of a handprint. No one else was home. Coincidence? Hallucination? Sleep paralysis? Sure, those are possible. But what if they're not? What if these children are tapping into something real? Something we don't understand yet? Some theories suggest they're interdimensional beings, entities that slip between worlds, taking the form of children to gain our trust. Others say they're aliens, using human-like disguises, but failing to get all the details right. That would explain their strange language patterns and behavior, like they're imitating what they think a child would be, without really knowing how one acts. And then there's the more spiritual theory: demons. The black eyes, the dread, the need for permission to enter, it mirrors vampire mythology and ancient demonic lore. Many religious traditions believe that evil cannot enter your home or your life unless you invite it. And these children always ask, they never force their way in, they need you to say yes. Which leads us to one of the most terrifying questions. What happens if you do let them in? Some say it's like opening a door you can't close. People report sudden misfortunes, illness, financial ruin, hallucinations, and worse. But it's rarely immediate. It's slow, creeping, like a rot that spreads from the inside out. And here's the kicker. No one really knows what these entities are. There's no origin story, no clear mythology. They just appeared. In the late 20th century, almost like they evolved with the internet. And maybe that's not a coincidence. Maybe our fear, our stories, our collective belief gives them power. Maybe they didn't come from another world. Maybe we created them. But can a myth hurt you? Can belief alone summon something real? That's the paradox of the black-eyed children. The more we talk about them, the more they seem to show up. The more we fear them, the more real they become. And maybe, just maybe, they were always there, waiting for us to notice. It's one thing to hear stories online. It's another to speak directly with people who claim to have lived through it. I started collecting testimonies, not just second-hand accounts or posts on forums, but interviews, real people, real fear in their voices. Some wanted to stay anonymous, others were eager to talk, as if releasing the memory could lessen its grip on them. One man, a truck driver from Arizona, said he was parked overnight at a rest stop when he saw two kids standing by the edge of the road. It was past midnight. The desert was completely silent, just the soft hum of insects. He thought maybe they were lost or needed help, but as he stepped out of the cab, something stopped him cold. Their eyes, completely black. They didn't move, they didn't blink, they just stared. He said it felt like time slowed down, like he was underwater. The air got heavy and he couldn't breathe. He jumped back in the truck and drove off without looking back. For days, he had nightmares. He couldn't sleep. His hair started falling out in patches, and he swears he's not the superstitious type. But something changed after that night. Another woman from England told me she saw a child knocking at her door during a thunderstorm. The boy was soaked, no umbrella, barefoot. She cracked the door open. He asked to use the phone. She hesitated. The boy didn't look up. When he finally did, the eyes, that same deep void. She slammed the door shut. But for weeks after, she said her electronics went haywire. Lights flickered. Her dog barked non-stop at empty rooms. She started seeing shadows in her peripheral vision, things moving that shouldn't be moving. She eventually moved out of the house entirely. All these stories share a strange pattern. Once you've encountered them, it doesn't feel like it ends when they walk away. There's an aftermath, as if something lingers or attaches. It's worth noting the psychological explanations. Experts in trauma and hallucination say these encounters could be linked to sleep disorders, night terrors, or even mass suggestion. Our brains are incredibly powerful. They can make us see what we expect to see, especially when fear and isolation are involved. But then, how do you explain the shared details? The black eyes, the unnatural behavior, the way these stories come from people across different countries, cultures, and backgrounds. We need to talk about the symbolism of black eyes. In many ancient cultures, black eyes represent a lack of soul. The eyes are said to be the window to the soul, and when those eyes are pitch black, with no emotion, no light, no humanity, it signals something deeply wrong. Even animals sense it. Many witnesses report their pets acting aggressively or fearfully around these children. One man's cat scratched through a window screen to get away the moment the child approached the porch. But here's a chilling twist. Sometimes people do let them in. You have to dig deeper to find these stories. They're harder to verify, often anonymous. But there's a recurring theme: regret. A woman in Colorado let a girl in to use the bathroom. She seemed so young, so polite. But once inside, the girl stood still, silent. Her eyes went black. The woman said she suddenly felt dizzy and weak. Her nose started bleeding. The girl smiled, not a kind smile, but one that felt wrong. Eventually, the girl left on her own. Within a week, the woman was hospitalized for severe migraines and internal bleeding. Doctors couldn't find a cause. Coincidence, maybe. But these patterns show up again and again: illness, tragedy, psychological decline. And that's the haunting part. These aren't just ghost stories. They're warnings, and they always seem to end the same way. I wish I hadn't opened the door. What makes these children so terrifying isn't just their appearance. It's the invitation. They ask for your help. They use politeness, vulnerability, the face of innocence. And that's where the horror really lies, in the manipulation of trust. They know we're wired to protect children, to comfort them. But these children, they're not children. There's something else pretending to be. This raises deeper questions. If they're real, what are they? Are they scouts, messengers, probes from another world or another dimension? Are they testing us or feeding off us? Some theorists believe they're harvesting energy, fear energy, emotional responses, that every encounter is a data point, an experiment, and that the more we talk about them, the more they learn. It's a chilling thought that by simply discussing them, we give them more reach, more access. That every mention, every post, every video spreads their influence just a little bit further. But here's the most disturbing detail I've found. Some reports say the black-eyed children have started appearing during the day. Briefly, glimpses, always near thresholds, doorways, cars, windows, as if they're adapting, evolving, becoming bolder. And what if one day they don't ask anymore? What if they just enter? Think about how we treat legends. We dismiss them. We share them like campfire tales. But sometimes, legends are the only way people knew how to explain the unexplainable. 1,000 years ago, if you saw a strange being in the woods, you'd call it a spirit, a demon, a fairy. Today we might call it a cryptid, an alien, or an urban legend. But maybe the labels don't matter. Maybe what matters is that people keep seeing them, and something is there. What terrifies us most about the black-eyed children isn't just their appearance. It's that deep feeling that we're dealing with something old, something beyond logic, wearing a mask that almost fits, but not quite. Because it's in the almost that the terror lies. There is a moment in every mystery when the story stops being out there and starts creeping inward. That moment when it is no longer just about what happened to someone else, but what it means for us. That's the unsettling truth behind the black-eyed children. Whether you believe in them or not, they raise questions that go far beyond the boundaries of urban legend. Questions about fear, perception, trust, and how little we really understand about the world around us. Let's talk about thresholds, doors, windows, cars. These are more than just places where the black-eyed children appear. They are symbols, boundaries between the known and the unknown, between safety and danger, between logic and the unexplained. In every story, the children never enter unless invited. That simple rule, repeated so consistently, suggests more than folklore. It speaks to something ancient in human culture, the belief that evil, in whatever form, must be granted permission. And isn't that true in life too? Sometimes we let darkness in without realizing it. A toxic relationship, a bad habit, an addiction. They never burst through the door, they knock, politely, gently. Can I come in? That's the power of this story. It mirrors our own vulnerabilities. It forces us to ask, what have I invited into my life thinking it was harmless? The black-eyed children are terrifying not just because they might be real, but because they might be a metaphor, a mirror of our deepest fears. What if they represent the parts of ourselves we try to ignore? The moments when we've felt hollow, disconnected, emotionless, the days when we've looked in the mirror and not recognized who we were. Maybe they were not here to harm us. Maybe they here to remind us how easy it is to become empty inside if we forget who we are. There are even stories where the children don't speak. They just stand there staring, waiting. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the silence is the message, that what truly frightens us is not what we know, but what we don't. Not the scream in the dark, but the long, quiet stare of something that should not be. That kind of fear doesn't fade, it lingers, and once it's planted in your mind, it's hard to uproot. One detail that keeps surfacing in the most recent accounts is that the children seem to know things, personal things, your name, your schedule, your dog's name, your late grandmother's favorite song. And they don't say these things directly. They hint. They drop lines like, you don't need to check the time, you'll still be late, or your sister's home alone, right? Statements that feel just vague enough to brush off, but specific enough to chill your blood. That leads some to believe we're dealing with something psychic, an intelligence that can probe, listen, learn. If that's true, then it suggests a chilling possibility that they've been watching, listening, waiting for the right moment. And that moment is always the same, when you're alone, tired, a little off guard, vulnerable. And here's where things get darker. Some believe the black-eyed children are connected to missing persons cases. There are no confirmed links, of course, no proof. But there are whispers, stories of people who vanished after strange encounters. People who reported a child knocking at their door a week before they disappeared. Police reports with incomplete notes, journal entries ending mid-sentence, emails never sent, and in every case, friends say the person wasn't themselves in the days before. Distant, distracted, like something had gotten inside their head. It's easy to dismiss all this as paranoia, but what if it's not? Think about the world we live in. We're surrounded by surveillance, data, eyes watching us constantly, digital and otherwise. What if some eyes aren't man-made? What if something is using our networks, our platforms, our curiosity to get closer? Every search, every video, every like on a story about black-eyed kids. What if that's the doorway now? Because doors have changed. We don't just answer knocks anymore. We click, we scroll, we tap. And every tap might be a whisper, "Let me in." If the black-eyed children are real, or even if they re-not, they reveal something real about us. That in our need for answers, we sometimes invite more questions. That in our search for connection, we sometimes attract the wrong kind of attention. That our minds are more open and more fragile than we'd like to admit. So what do you do if one shows up? The most common advice is this: don't engage, don't speak, don't open the door. But maybe the real advice is simpler and harder. Stay grounded, trust your instincts. And above all, don't let fear make your decisions for you. Because fear is the crack in the door, and whatever waits outside, it's patient. You might never see a black-eyed child in real life. Maybe this is just a spooky tale to keep you up at night. Or maybe tonight, when you hear that soft knock and look through the peephole, you'll remember what you heard here. The face might be small, the voice might sound kind. But those eyes will tell you everything you need to know. Whether the black-eyed children are myth, entity, or something in between, they've tapped into a very real space in our collective imagination. They remind us that not all threats are loud, that danger can come dressed in innocence, and that sometimes the scariest monsters don't hide under the bed. They knock politely and wait to be let in. So the next time someone unfamiliar asks for help on a quiet night, maybe double-check the eyes, just to be safe. And remember, not every story is just a story. Stay aware, stay curious, and most of all, stay human.